Good morning, Fellowship Hi-Crest. Thanks for joining us today for Jumpstart on Friday, June 4th. We'll be looking at Acts chapter 27, verses 1 through 12. And I'm actually just going to read verses 10 through 12 today. It says, he said, I believe there is trouble ahead if we go on, shipwreck, loss of cargo, and danger to our lives as well. But the officer in charge of the prisoners listened more to the ship's captain and the owner than to Paul. And since Fair Havens was an exposed harbor, a poor place to spend the winter, most of the crew wanted to go on to Phoenix, further up the coast of Crete, and spend the winter there. Phoenix was a good harbor with only a southwest and northwest exposure. All right. So at this point, Paul had been in prison for over 2 years without a fair trial, and he had met with the new governor Festus and King Agrippa. And when he had presented his case to them, he realized, I'm getting nowhere here. And he had asked and appealed to be sent to Caesar, for his case to go to Caesar and be determined by Caesar. That was his right as a Roman citizen. And then our passage today, Paul finds himself on his sea journey from the Jerusalem, Caesarea area to Rome. And by Luke's account in Acts, it's estimated that Paul had traveled over 3,000 miles by sea during his missionary journeys. He was an experienced seafarer. And when he speaks in verse 10 and tells about the danger and trouble ahead, he probably should have been listened to. He had a lot of experience in this area, and it should have carried more weight than what it did. And Paul had visions all along that we've read about, that God was promising him that he was going to make it to Rome, that his next stop and his next place in his journey was going to be to Rome. And so Paul wasn't necessarily concerned about his own life and whether he was going to make it to Rome and make it to their destination, but instead he was caring for the other people that he was traveling with. He didn't want to see unnecessary loss of possessions or life. We see here that Paul cared deeply for those that were even his captives, those that were taking him to the next spot in his trial. He wanted, he cared about their lives, he cared about their possessions, and he was willing to speak truth into this situation, even when it was hard, even when he might not be heard or listened to. He was going to stand up and speak in this situation. And Paul's value and security in his own life didn't come from his circumstances, but it came from God alone. He cared because God cared. And God does care. He still cares today. And so my prayer for us today is that we see our own circumstances through God's eyes and not our own, and that we're able to care for those around us because God cares for them. Thanks for joining us this morning. We will see you on Sunday morning for our services.